Hello and welcome back to the SOPRANO podcast. My name's Heidi and that's it. I am your host, and today, if you can hear it, I'm sure you can, I have a beverage with me today, although it is not the beverage that I wish that I had. This right now that I'm drinking is an iced matcha oat milk latte that I just concocted here with some boba at the bottom. I also put a little bit of almond milk creamer in there, so it's a nice little caffeinated beverage at 5:37 p.m., which is when I'm recording this. But it's Saturday night, so we're going crazy. And I've got some things to do on my agenda. But the drink that I wish that I had, and Kat, if you're listening to this, I'm not going to go get a margarita because I just don't know where to get one because I don't want to make it, okay? I just want to go to a restaurant and have a margarita experience. It's not about the drink as much as it is the margarita experience, okay? Like, I've been really wanting a margarita for, like, weeks, I would say. Like, a long time. And I have not yet satisfied this urge because I don't think it's necessarily the margarita itself that I'm after. You know, I'm looking for that sunshine. I'm looking for that outdoor experience. I'm looking for that, the whole margarita feeling. Like, there's this one place in Port Jefferson. If you're on Long Island, you know where that is. And it's called Burrito, and they have this really cool setup where they can actually somehow bust out the windows in their upstairs restaurant location. So it's like kind of loftish, but also they can like take out these big giant windows in the front. So like once it's nice outside, it's pretty much like an indoor-outdoor place where, because it's not like a balcony. It's a weird setup. You should go there and see. But they have a really good spicy margarita, and that's what I'm looking for. Okay, people? I am looking for a spicy margarita. Not your, like, I don't care about dollar margaritas, even though I am a cheap connoisseur. Like, I don't want no Applebee's margarita. I'm not looking for that. I know that some people are like, they go for like dollar margs at Applebee's or whatever. Okay, I acknowledge that and I hear you. But it is just not what I want. I want a spicy margarita, and I want to be with my friends, and I want to sit at like a Mexican restaurant and be having a good time with a margarita in my hand. You know what I mean? Like, is that too much to ask? Clearly. Clearly it is, because pandemic season is still upon us. And what a weird thing. I was thinking about that earlier today. Like, this generation, right on cue. You know those doggies are ready for us. If you're new to the podcast, you must understand that I have just kind of acknowledged the fact that the dogs barking are like a segment of the podcast. So this is our segment, one of them. So yeah. But the margarita sitch, here's the deal. I just am so excited for it to be warmer, because regardless of the COVID situation, warmer means we can at least meet up with friends, like physically distanced outside, and like, stand outside at a park or at a beach or whatever and have interactions that way. Whereas right now, it's cold as all hell, and you can't really meet up outside, so it's like kind of pointless to try and get together, because going to a restaurant is not necessarily the smartest choice, obviously. And if you choose to do that, then fine, that's your own prerogative. But I think just in general, for me, it's not the smartest choice to, even if the restaurants are following all of the precautions, unless you have the vaccine and you're confident and you know you're not going to be either contracting the virus or spreading it to somebody else, it's hard to say. It's so complicated. Ugh, yuck, barf. But not barf are margaritas. And I cannot wait to have them and really just to have those experiences. Also, I must say, this matcha latte, maybe I'm influenced by the color of it, because obviously it's green, but it kind of tastes like Lucky Charms milk. Like, seriously, if you poured a bowl of Lucky Charms and then just put the milk over ice and drank it, that's kind of what this tastes like. But the matcha isn't sweetened, so I'm thinking it might be the oat milk. Have you had this experience with oat milk where, like, I love oat milk, do not get me wrong, but it kind of just tastes like cereal milk. And if I'm not looking for cereal milk, or like, I mean, I guess I'm never not looking for cereal milk. Like, I would... It's just hard. It's hard to balance because there's so many different kinds of non-dairy milks. Like, let's just be real. Let's go ahead and rank all of the non-dairy milks. Okay? Let me just get my phone here. And we're going to make a definitive list of all of the non-dairy milks, because listen, there are hierarchies. Oh, man, it is... Okay, so what I'm seeing here is... Okay, the first one on the list is almond milk. And what I will say about almond milk is I personally like almond milk if I want something to not taste like the milk that I'm trying to put it in, right? Like, if I'm trying to do something really light, really thin, because almond milk, the worst part about it is so thin. It's unbelievably thin, and it's like the viscosity of it is trash. So, almond milk, that's our first one. Coconut milk, unfortunately, the viscosity is almost there, but the taste of coconut is unideal if you're trying to get something that doesn't taste like coconuts. So, between those two, I think I'm going to put almond milk above coconut milk, even though I will say I will use, like, coconut fat or, like, full-fat coconut milk for, like, Thai dishes or cooking, and that's honestly cannot be replaced, will not ever be replaced. So, like, for cooking, like, if I'm making a curry, coconut milk is better than almond milk, but for this just ranking of the milks, we're going to put coconut milk underneath almond milk. And then we have soy, obviously. Soy, it's got good viscosity. It's been around for a long time. Obviously, all of these kind of have, but soy milk, I feel like, has been popular in the past. If you have, like, if you're a millennial and your parents were, like, kind of hippies, they probably, like, gave you some soy milk. I never personally drank soy milk when I was a kid, but I'm going to put soy milk above almond milk. So the current ranking is soy milk, then almond milk, then coconut milk. Next we have rice milk, which I go back and forth about rice milk because it's kind of weird consistency. I think just because of the lack of how often I have rice milk, I'm going to put rice milk at the bottom. Sorry, rice milk. I hate to do it to you, but whatever. And then next, it's showing oat milk. And TBH, right now, I'm kind of in a good place with oat milk. It's really easy to make, but it's also, like, not that expensive to buy, even at Whole Foods, which I will not be frequenting, because if you listen to yesterday's episode, I have some very strong feelings about the prices at Whole Foods, but oat milk is usually great consistency. It's great flavor. It's not overpowering in any one direction, but I'm really looking for consistency in the milk that I'm using. So I'm going to put oat milk at the top. So right now it goes oat milk, then soy milk, then almond milk, then coconut, then rice. And yeah, all these other ones that I'm seeing, I've never even tried them, so it wouldn't be fair for me to rank them. Oh, except for cashew milk. Ooh, that was horrible. You would think it would be okay. You would think it would be awesome because cashews are so fatty. I don't know what it was like. I think it was Forager brand or something, but I remember so vividly I had a sip of cashew milk and it was the most unpleasant, like weirdly, like it was like weird texture, like left a film in my mouth and like surprisingly thin. So I'm gonna put cashew way at the bottom, and then I'm seeing other milks here like flax milk, peanut milk, ew, quinoa milk. Yuck, dude. Oh my god. I feel like banana milk probably wouldn't be too bad. I don't know, dude. There's a lot of different kinds of things you can make like a milk beverage out of. Yeah, man. I'm just looking through all these things now. It's like, oh my god, so many options. Flax milk. I've heard of making like a flax egg. Like you can soak flax seeds and it'll be like the consistency of an egg. Wow, but it says it has a great if you're looking for those omega-3s and fatty acids, that's going to be your milk. But yeah, guys, non-dairy milks are so tough, and this one I do like it, but it definitely tastes like cereal. Very good, though. I'm not complaining, and I love boba. Oh, my God. All right, let's read us a little story, shall we? Let's read a little tale. Let's do us a little reading. Get our vitamins in for the day. So yesterday we had Couperin. We had Coupran. And now we have Rameau. Yes. Oh my god. Okay. So our minute, if you're new to the podcast, we do a minute sketch of great composers every day. We must also, though, keep in mind, because we are knowledgeable of editions and when things were written, we have to keep in mind that this was written in the 30s by two people named Eva and Helen. And my girls, you know, we love them, but sometimes they say things that are a little out of date. So we just take everything that we say with a grain of salt, and we learn in spite of it. Okay, so we have today Jean-Philippe Rameau. His title underneath says Compositeur de la musique de la chambre. So, chamber music composer. Born 1683, died 1764. Okay, life. Okay, living. His contemporaries probably called him, quote, the old grouch, for he appears to have been a closed-fisted, unamiable, and inarticulate old gentleman, though at 43 he won a bride of 18, surely enough to have sweetened his sour disposition? Ew! I'm upset. Are you kidding me? Imagine being an 18-year-old human being and having to literally get married to a 43-year-old man. I know these things happen still today, but we need to like do something about that because that makes me want to literally die. Oh, I have chills. I hate that. Oh, surely enough to have sweetened his sour disposition. Gross. You disgust me. His father, organist of the cathedral in Dijon, sat him down before a harpsichord soon after his birth, September 25th, 1683, as his baby fingers would function. His musical education prepared him so well for the study of law that he persisted in scribbling music in all his notebooks and singing aloud in the classroom, a practice which procured summary curtailment of his legal career. A passion for a young widow at 17 sent him packing off to Italy to the improvement of his epistolary style and the enrichment of his musical life. He spent some time in Paris, then, disgruntled by his failure to secure a competitive post as organist there, he withdrew to the mountains of Auvergne. Ooh. Oh, the plot thickens. From the experimental studies of that retirement came his treatise on harmony reduced to its natural principles, the foundation of a new philosophic science of harmony which he followed with other learned writings on the same subject. Oh, I didn't know that. Nevertheless, until after his 40th year, he was comparatively unknown. His ambition to write operas went begging until a musical mecenas, Maecenas, of Paris, introduced him to the Abbé Pellegrin, who wrote the book for Hippolyte Aricie. Aricie. God, you guys, if I could read, that would be great. And he was so charmed with Rameau's music that at first performance he publicly destroyed the agreement by which Rameau had promised payment at the event of its failure. From 1745 on, a new opera was born each year. La Princesse de Navarre, Voltaire being the librettist, won him the king's title of Compositeur de la Musique de la Chambre. Castor and Pollux, his masterpiece, has recently been revived. When in 1752 an Italian company brought to Paris a charming opera, La Serva Padrona of Pergolesi, the city was rent with partisanship, the Coin du Roi at the opera, supporting Rameau and French classicism, while the Coin de la Reine, consisting largely of admirers of the Frenchman, Lully, was all for Italian entertainment. In the end, the old grouch, Rameau, who with his last breath corrected the priest at his deathbed for intoning off-key, was acknowledged leader of the French school of his day, the contributor of new forms, varied rhythms, rich harmonies, and original orchestral effects. Dang! Oh my god, Rameau! Jeez! Can you imagine being on your deathbed and, being like, ugh, God, I'm literally dying. Can you sing in tune, for Christ's sake? Oh, my Lord. Also, I would like to apologize for my terrible reading skills. A lot of these words from the 30s, I don't know why, like curtailment and things that we don't say anymore, I'm trying to of course now when I'm looking for things, but there's a lot of French in here and other languages, so I do my best when I read these, but girl, I would like to read his treatise. I never know how to pronounce that word. I think it's treatise. Treatise on harmony reduced to its natural principles. That would be an interesting read for sure. Yeah, wow. I know that when you go back in time, you gotta you've gotta look at all these dead white guys and be like, ugh, yeah, I know there was some really weird stuff going down and all that nonsense, but oof, that opening paragraph about being 43 when he won a bride, first of all, winning a bride, ew, when he won a bride of 18, surely enough to have sweetened his sour disposition, and I know, listen, this is an education in itself, to be reading something written in the 30s, the author of this knew their audience when they were writing it, and it's so interesting that 90 years later or so, the way that somebody would read it now is ugh, that makes me uncomfortable. When it's somebody in the 30s might have been ha ha ha, yeah, oh my gosh, wow, good for him, 18-year-old. I don't know. Perhaps not, but that's just my first instinct. And also the deathbed thing gets me every time. Okay, good on that, you guys. We get smarter every day. You learn something new every single day. And now you know a little bit about Remo, the old grouch, as we would have it. But I guess he was pretty great. I know quite a bit of Remo, and I have never really sung any of it, but I am very familiar with some of his compositions. So, yeah, you guys, I think I'm going to cut it off now a little bit early because I have some plants that are waiting for me over there. I'm going to be repotting a few plants and putting them in bigger pots, allowing for some new growth. We love that. I'm going to finish this matcha because it is some delicious cereal milk with some caffeine. Caffeine make me go fast, so we love that. And yeah, I'm not gonna have a margarita, which is very sad. But maybe someday we'll be able to have margaritas freely, I know we will, but if you have any suggestions on good margarita places, I know that I really like, there's a place in, obviously, Port Jeff that I mentioned, Barito, but also there's a place in Babylon, which I know you can get margaritas to go, which is kind of questionable, but I appreciate their tenacity during a pandemic to still make drinks and stuff. But there's a place in Babylon called Swell Taco. Ugh, chef's kiss, amazing, love Swell Taco. And they've got some damn good margaritas. So if you're looking for margaritas, those are my two suggestions. Feel free to let me know of any of your suggestions that will hopefully take account, or I'll take them into account when we can actually go and do things. But yeah, you guys, so that's what's been going on for me today. Let's see what else. I'm gonna do some practicing after this because I've been having kind of a weird time with La Voce in the past couple of days. I've been having all my girls out there, when you're around the time of your period or, whatever, your voice gets it. It's a hormonal thing, and your whole body is affected by hormones. So when you have to deal with a hormonal time in the month, it affects you. And to all my not female friends out there, or to all my male teachers or non-binary folks who do not have to endure a period, and if you ever have to teach young students, I'm sure you'll have to teach a girl at some point. And I'm sure you will have to endure this fact. So don't be oh, that's weird, she's talking about a period. Oh, God. It's dude, this is what half of the population has to go through every single month. And if you're a teacher, you're going to be experiencing that in your students every single month. So instead of being oh, that's kind of weird, why are you talking about that on your podcast? That's kind of strange. I think if you have that first reaction of that's weird, I think you need to look inward and analyze your prejudices over talking about something that happens to half the population and just be this is not about me, clearly, because I think the people who do have periods are never oh, it's so weird to talk about periods. Because it's not. It literally happens hundreds of times in our lifetime. So it affects your singing, is what I'm trying to say. If you're a teacher and you do not experience a monthly menstrual cycle, you should still learn about it, and you should still be sensitive to it, and you should still understand that sometimes your young singers or your 20-year-old singers or your 35-year-old singers that you have might be affected in sometimes a big way every month. So talking to them about it and being open about it and understanding that this is a part of life and there's no getting around it. You can't just ignore it, because if your student says something about like, oh, you know, I'm dealing with this problem and it's because of this, and I think it's because of this. You can't just be like, okay, well, we don't talk about that here, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not a health teacher. You kind of are, in a way. You're talking about anatomy with your students, the anatomy of the larynx, the anatomy of your entire body. Your body is your instrument here. And for those students who experience periods, their instrument is out of their control for like a week or so, or sometimes longer, leading up to their cycle or coming out of their cycle. And I am no exception to that. It changes things, and hormonally your body fluctuates, and it's like, okay, cool. So now I have to like just relearn my instrument for a couple weeks, because it's not the same every time. But for me personally, it's kind of consistently different. Like, I can kind of expect things to be a little awkward feeling and just a little bit, like, I explain it like kind of gawky. Like, it sometimes can get a little thin feeling, but also sometimes can be really thick feeling. Thick, I'm explaining the sensation of my vocal folds. So it just depends, and you just have to be open about it. I never prod with my students about it, like especially my younger students. If they're like, I have a couple students who are, 12, 13 years old, and I'm never like, hey, what's going on? Because I am not trying to ask, if somebody's not sounding good that day or whatever. But if one of my students tells me that they're going through their menstrual cycle and they feel frustrated, or they're not singing, they're not feeling as well as they normally do singing something, or they sound different on this and they don't know why, and they feel comfortable enough sharing with me the fact that they are experiencing this monthly thing that literally is so normal, and it happens to literally every single person who has a female body. Oh, God, I never, bat my eye twice about it. I'm open to talk about that, and I think that it creates a more realistic, just realistic relationship that you should have with your body as someone who goes through periods. You don't have to be female to have a period. If you do not identify as female and you still have a period, your periods are still very much real periods. So don't take that the wrong way. But like, yeah, I just feel like when you talk about it and when people can normalize it, I don't necessarily care about people's judgments about me talking about it on a podcast, because it is my firm belief that the more that we talk about it, the less of those people will be around to judge about it. And I think that it's unfair to young women to have to blindly navigate through this difficult time in their lives. And, when it's first happening to you, it's like, oh my God, this is horrible. And honestly, it is kind of horrible for a lot of people still, like even in your 20s and into your 30s and into your 40s, and then the whole game changes way after then. I have not personally experienced that yet, honestly. Obviously, I mean, but it's something that people should talk about, because people are so open to talk about the male voice change and how, we're so quick to like cushion all of these young boys about their voice change, and be like, oh, you have to be really kind to them. You have to be really understanding because they're going through this really hard time, this puberty time. It's really hard for them. And, they don't know what's going on and their body's changing so much. These boys. And I get it. Trust me. If you're a boy and you've gone through it, I'm sure it's very difficult to completely have your voice change like overnight sometimes for some young boys. I'm sure that's a big deal. But on the other hand, there's not much conversation happening about females' voice changing. And that's so unfortunate because it just kind of leads to questioning yourself and wondering if you're even good enough and wondering, why is this happening to me and why, nobody really wants to talk about it. Nobody, like, especially if you are like a young high schooler or you are like, I would probably say young high schooler, and you're experiencing these things for the first time and you have a male teacher. That's really tough because the relationship between teacher and student is so precious. It's like if you're a young girl and you have a male teacher, odds are they're going to be uncomfortable talking to you about that whole situation, your menstrual cycle and how it affects your voice. And honestly, they probably don't necessarily know that much about it because it's not really written down in a lot of textbooks. People aren't necessarily, talking about it in like the older textbooks. And I'm not talking about like recent stuff, but if you are looking like before 1980, it's probably going to be very, very seldom that you're going to see like an in-depth passage about the female voice change. So I just find it really interesting, and I think that people should normalize this conversation more and have more open conversation about it, less discomfort, because your discomfort leads to a young person's discomfort, which then leads to, systemic, problematic, long periods of time where people are questioning themselves as young musicians. And if you could help your students in any way, wouldn't you want to do that? Wouldn't you want to share the knowledge that you have about something, or wouldn't you want to gain some more knowledge to help your students? Because that's my main goal. Like, I'm not trying to do anything that's going to not benefit my students. And if I didn't think it would benefit them, I wouldn't pursue it. But I do think, because I have personally experienced this, that talking about the menstrual cycle and the female voice change and just giving some validity to these young girls who are so afraid to sing in their head voice. Oh my God, these poor young things. Like, it's difficult because there is a significant voice change for females and people just kind of gloss over it. But basically what it is that your voice gets very husky sounding and wispy and airy, and the folds become less coordinated, and there is a gap, essentially, in the back of the vocal folds, and the technical term for it is called the glottal chink, and it is in the back of the vocal folds where, this is all very much written about, so you can read up on it, but it basically just kind of states that for an indeterminate amount of time, the head voice becomes extremely light and hard to maneuver and difficult. The passaggio becomes extremely pronounced, and you get young girls who are more comfortable singing in their chest voice because, in my experience, solely because you can produce more sound down there. And I have a lot of young singers who think that they're altos, and oh, girl, you're not, you might not be. I think that I tested your range, girl, and I hear you up in that head voice, and you got some healthy production up there. It's just not the sound that you're looking for. It's not as meaty as what you can do in the bottom of your range. But, you know, that's the female voice change in a nutshell. I highly recommend you going and looking up some articles about this. I believe there's a book called The Singing Voice, or don't quote me on that, but there's some really great resources out there. And of course, as we know from our, our minute sketches, you have to be wary of the sources that you look for. So just know that when you look for sources, you're looking for things that are reputable or peer-reviewed or, all of the above. You know how to look for sources, but just be careful because there's some weird stuff written out there for voice. Anyway, so I guess that's my spiel on the female voice change. And of course, please take everything that I say with a grain of salt. I am also a student. While I am a doctoral student, I do very much hold myself to a standard of constantly refreshing my knowledge, so I do not ever pretend to know it all. I don't ever pretend that I can't learn anything else, or if I learned something wrong back in my undergrad days, or if I remember something incorrectly, I am always open to relearning something, or refreshing something, or open for conversation about something, but this is what I know as of right now. And yeah, that's my spiel, you guys. I didn't expect to talk about this today, but that's how the podcast works. You never know what you're gonna get up on the Paper Soprano. So, all right, you guys, I gotta propagate some plants here. We've got some things to do. We've got fish to fry, and by fish to fry, I mean matcha to drink. So, I really appreciate you guys being here, and I hope that you enjoy this podcast. If you do, and you want to support it in some way, you can go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel, or you can leave a like, you can leave a comment, you can give me your definitive ranking of all of the non-dairy milks. Be my guest, girl. But obviously, of course, you don't have to. I'm not trying to pressure you, okay? For real though, I'm not trying to pressure you. And I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night whenever you happen to be listening to this. I hope you're staying safe, and I hope that you're mainly staying safe so that I can get a margarita soon, okay? I want a margarita with my friends. Even if they don't want margaritas, we're getting margaritas, okay? That's the deal. So, if any of my friends are listening to this, you better believe it's gonna be margarita time pretty soon. And, that's just how it is. So, okay, you guys, thank you so much for listening. I never know how to end this podcast. I always feel very strange, but, yeah, okay, love you, mean it. I've got a lot of spit in my mouth right now for some reason. Ew. Oh, why am I like this? Bye!